Hola. All right, we got it together quick this time. Okay, as promised in the title in this stream, I am going to tell you guys the truth about absolutely everything under the sun. As presumptuous as that sounds, it's not actually that difficult to tell the truth about the things that society doesn't want to talk about, at least. And, you know, it's always driven me nuts, this thing of people sweeping everything under the rug that is difficult to talk about. And, you know, people prioritize their bottom line and their social lubricant, right? The politesse that we use to navigate social situations is like holy and sacred above and beyond truth. And that is evil. As we have seen, you know, the way that things are unfolding in our world is largely due to this. And I really try to avoid the paranoid conspiracy, sounding topics at this point in my YouTube journey. But the reality is a lot of these triggery subjects, you know, these difficult areas, I believe are engineered to be that way, you know. Hello, Robert. They are wedge issues, you know. Abortion is a wedge issue, and we're going to get into why that is, why it works. One of the fundamental constituent elements of an effective wedge issue is that it has to be unsolvable, or at least the narratives that each side are fed to keep them squabbling are faulty, right? They're straw man arguments, or they're otherwise based on some kind of fallacy. And so, you know, they're partly true and partly false. They're always designed that way, so that you have one side making a stupid argument and the other side making a stupid argument. There's no possibility of resolution, right? And then we have racial issues that are, engineered, I guess, really, in such a way that they serve to divide people when the, you know, superficial presentation of it is that it is, who is this coming in here? That it is, you know, an attempt at bringing people together. And I'll give a great example of that, too. I'm a little hesitant to really jump into this stuff because I know my subscriber count's going to drop. It always does. It always does. I can't believe we have so few people, too. I'm going to stall a little bit before I really get into the meats and potatoes to see if... Actually, you know what? This is the first time I've done this in the category of people and blogs, so maybe that was not a good idea. I don't know. I have no idea. So, yeah, race, abortion, immigration, you know, the whole political system in general in the United States, it's a really tough thing to tackle because people are not receptive, you know, and a lot of people tell me it would be a lot wiser for you with your small audience and, you know, just shut up about this stuff. I can't do that, and I'm going to tell you why. This is why we're here, in a nutshell, tonight, dragging me through the mud to an extent, probably. There was an experiment that was done in, I believe, the 1980s that's generally just referred to as the line experiment, right? They drew 3 lines, maybe 4, and one of them was like half the size of the other lines. And they discovered that 88% of people will lie if they believe the majority believes something, even though they know it's not true. So when you look out into the sea of blithering zombies, and you're wondering, can these people really be thinking this stuff? No. as many as 88% of them, and this is the crazy part, if the propaganda machine can convince a majority that there are, or can convince people that there is a majority, it could even be an illusion that it's a majority because they're following whatever they think the majority is, you know? And why? Safety in numbers. It's a simple matter of survival instinct. So, the first thing is that if you can have a successful diagnosis, you have potentially a good prognosis. Can't have one without the other, though. So it's like if you have a cold and you have cancer, and you're diagnosed for having a cold, especially if it's a matter of denial, right? You know it's cancer, and you're just like, this big lump in my throat is just sinuses, whatever, you know. You're going to die. And that is why this selective perception, this collective pathological denial that we have developed as a society is looking pretty terminal. That's really what it is, you know. Because if we had the objectivity to bring these demons out into the light and actually just deal with them, so many of the problems that we have would diminish, or they would at least become manageable. And right now, they're terminal. At least, you know, that's kind of how it's looking. So should we start with Luigi? Should we start with Luigi? I'm going to be perfectly honest. The people that are angry, that people are talking trash about this guy and being callous, they're fucking demons. Seriously. The kid is a hero. Period. End of story. You know? And this is another one of those insane wedge issue type scenarios, right? We have the left comparing him to Kyle Rittenhouse. I'm not a right-winger. I'm not a leftist. I'm neither thing. I constantly am trying to communicate to people that they have deliberately taken a ball of truth and falsehood and shaken it up and rolled it down the aisles, you know, so it's 50-50. They're all in conflict about stuff constantly because they're half wrong and half right on both sides, almost exactly. You know what I mean? That's how they engineer the political system. That's why there's only two parties. But yeah, so Rittenhouse shoots a pedo and an armed, you know, they were both pieces of shit, these guys that he shot. They were both complete pieces of shit. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They were pieces of shit. And they were attacking a guy that had an assault rifle. So not too bright either. He's not a hero, but there's nothing wrong with what he did. And arguably, maybe kind of taking two pieces of shit out of society. I don't really see the problem there in the case of these two guys he shot. But the left, you know, is saying you're mad at us for celebrating Luigi as a hero. Now you understand how we felt when Rittenhouse. No, straw man argument. Shut up. It's not an equivalent. The kid did nothing wrong. He was acquitted by a jury because he was being attacked and he defended himself. You know? And this kid, Luigi, yeah, I feel terrible for him. He was, you know, young and fit and rich, you know, came from a rich family. I mean, that is 99% of the time when somebody does something like this, they have no hope. They're, you know, out of their minds. This kid gave up everything to try to take a stand, you know. And I'm not promoting violence. But this has done more to bring right and left together than anything that I have witnessed in the last 20 years. And I have not seen something shake up the upper classes this much in my entire life. You know, immediately the next day, there were insurance companies that were re-examining their policies. you know? And what I've been talking about how we keep these demons in the shadows and refuse to bring them out in the light and really deal with them, they just grow and grow and grow and grow. You know, for example, we have the propaganda about capitalism in the United States. If you criticize any aspect of it, particularly with right-wingers, but the crazy thing is leftists tend to be more pro-capitalist than the right thinks. I've never had my lefty friends, start, saying we should go communist. You know what I mean? I've never heard that in my life. It's just propaganda. Got to keep them divided so they don't figure that out, But it's just propaganda. I know there are a few extremists that, But anyways, the unchecked capitalism, commerce, has been going on for 5,000 years, since ancient Macedonia. Things of value are traded for goods and services. That's commerce. That's not capitalism. Criticizing capitalism or tenets of capitalism or the philosophy of capitalism as it is, practiced, I guess, in the modern United States is not inherently socialist or communist. It's just addressing the fact that look at what's happened. Look at what's happened. Look at what's happening. And I see people on social media actually defending the rights of these CEOs to put their shareholders' profits above the lives of human beings. The United States is the most heavily propagandized country on earth at this point. Maybe, is it North Korea? I guess that's worse. But you know what I mean? It's pretty bad. I mean, people fighting against healthcare when the United States has like the 35th or 42nd best life expectancy in the world. And I think it's I just posted it. Is it 70 countries? 70 countries that have free healthcare. And the propaganda from the Ministry of Health, from Big Brother's Ministry of Health. Oh, it's terrible. They hate it, And I saw one thread. They're Canadians, They're like, the Americans are like, oh, the Canadians hate it. And there's Canadians in the chat like, no, we don't. What are you talking about? It's great. We don't die, Like, what the fuck what are you talking about? So yeah. Shall we talk about Donald Trump? Man, you guys, this is super important. And again, I'm wasting my breath. I'm, pissing in the wind, except because those of you that already know this don't need to hear it. And those that don't are not going to hear it no matter, it could be implanted in their head by aliens. And they still wouldn't hear it. When I first started this channel, probably what got me in trouble the first year, in 2020, no, that wasn't the first year. That was like the second or third year, I guess. But at any rate, I had a stream blow up to 20,000. And I started talking about how the two parties are controlled by the same interests and how obvious it is, the propaganda, like how it functions, why it's there. If you understand the big picture and then you look at the pieces, there's no question about it. There's no question. There's no possibility that I'm just paranoid, And the thing about systems is that if you can predict their behavior consistently, proves that you understand the system. This is how meteorologists keep their jobs, right? So I could tell that the United States had been, I don't want to say drifting because that implies it's just kind of happening, and I don't think that's what's up at all. In fact, I'd also like to point out while I'm thinking about it that Australia, the UK, the United States, Canada are all doing the same type of shit at the same time. It's a bit odd, isn't it? Isn't it a bit odd that all of the former British colonies seem like they're still just one thing? They're all cracking down on the censorship. They're all, you know, they're all doing the same shit at the same time. It's just, you know, crazy conspiracy bullshit, I'm sure. But, so anyways, what I was saying is that, you know, I was predicting that they were going to consolidate party into one power into one party, because that's what you have to do in order to set up a totalitarian regime. And the United States, despite what everyone thinks, always hated the left. And up until, I guess, about the late 90s, early 2000s, they had always just directly persecuted them. You know, I think it's still like this, but LSD, you got in more trouble for possessing LSD than any other drug. If you had enough of it, you could be charged with conspiracy to run a continual criminal No. I got charged with that. That's the 848. What is the other one? Attempting to undermine the government. It's a treason charge. It's a treason charge. You can be executed. I don't know that they've actually used that, but it's there. And you cannot, they cannot charge you with that for selling heroin. It's because LSD undoes the programming. They admitted it by creating this legislation. Attempting to undermine the government. And the reason was that it made it really easy for them to put the best thinkers and the most creative people, the real revolutionaries, in prison forever. You know, they hated the left because they were trying to overthrow the overlords, you know? And the right was much easier for them to align themselves with because they were religious and they were, you know, pro-flag, branded nationalism, lunacy. You know what I mean? Gestapo friendly. And at some point, I think they figured out that a better strategy would be to demonize and vilify them. And it turns out that all you have to do is feed people a narrative. Like, I don't know, it's okay to give toddlers sex changes. That's going to incite and infuriate the right. Right? And also make a lot of the people on the left just look around and go, I don't want to be associated with these fucking lunatics, you know? So they're trying to drive them out of existence into one party, and the figurehead for that, not the actual dictator, would be Donald Trump. Right? I saw this because of the propaganda around him when he was running. I mean, you guys can go back to, actually it was in 2016, I guess, the first time that I started to notice it. And now look at this. Look at what's going on. Look at the loyalty that people have to this guy and the belief that they have in him. How deeply they're sold on this idea that this group of 11 billionaires that are in his, you know, cabinet or, you know, his appointees, they are all, what do you call it? The WEF, the World Economic Forum cronies. They're globalists, Zionists. You know, if these 11 billionaires aren't the deep state, who do they think the deep state is? It's crazy, you know? It's completely crazy. And the depth of the belief in this guy is terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. And the thing is, you can check. I told you all this was going to happen fucking 6 years ago or something. you know? And it's not because I'm psychic. I think I am sometimes. But it was just the propaganda. I could see it in the propaganda. I could see the intention. And now what has happened since he's gotten back into power, you know, supposed power? I don't buy it for a second. I don't think they're all puppets. They're all puppets. RFK Jr. posing with McDonald's, you know. Elon Musk announces he's getting into the mRNA business, right? You remember how much they all hated that on that side? What the hell? It's deliberate, you guys. It's totally deliberate. So, I should mention this too. When I was a kid in the 80s, my mom, I was young, you know, I was probably like 87, 88. My mom told me about this conspiracy theory. What's going on, man? Yeah, we have a small group tonight, man. It's got to be like a lame title or something. I don't know. But my mom told me about this conspiracy theory that supposedly came from my aunt, who was a CIA agent. And I literally just remembered that detail because I was such a little kid. You know, when I first posted about this, I was like, where the hell would she have even heard this? There was no internet back then. You know, she didn't have friends. It baffled me. Now I remember it was Cindy, our CIA agent aunt. And she gave me my first girlfriend. I mean, this is how young I was. It was a Miss Piggy doll that I fell in love with. I was that little. And I got to pack some more of this coca paste in my face. So, and Cindy, I think she was actually my second cousin on my dad's side or something. I don't really know. It was so long ago. But she disappeared. You know, she worked for the CIA and she just vanished. They sent her to China. And I don't know if she was a spy. You know, we didn't really know what she was doing. But they sent her to China like 25, 30 years ago or something. And she's just never been heard from again. And according to my mom, and I wouldn't even probably talk about this if she wasn't dead, but she said that according to Cindy, they were going to deliver microchips that could sit in your, they were sharp around the edges and all they had to do was like dock up against a nerve and they would be tapped into your nervous system. And they would be delivered through injections, through a mandated, I don't want to say, because I don't know how the algorithm is going to deal with that. So, when I heard that Elon Musk, the brain chip guy, is getting into the mRNA business, I mean, I'm sorry. Of course, I don't think anything that the algorithm doesn't like because I don't want to get deleted. But that strikes me as, and I know that conspiracy theory existed outside of my mom and this situation. I'm pretty sure David Icke talked about it like way back in like 2000 or something. So, either it was true and it's happening, or Elon Musk knows about it and he's just like messing with people, because it is too goddamn weird that conspiracy theory has been around. I know personally, at least since the late 80s. And now we have the brain chip jab guy, So this and today he said, Trump, it's really hard to bring down the price of groceries. Actually, sorry, I promised that I can't actually do it. They have proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that his whole persona of this deep state enemy, this rogue agent, was a farce. It was a farce. And my belief is, it serves the same purpose that Obama did. Up until Obama, The left hated the government. They didn't trust them. They were aware of stuff, leery. But here comes this like cool black guy, and he's like, I smoked dope in college, and so I'm, one of you. And even it got me for a minute. I actually had T-shirts printed with a picture of him smoking a joint in college, all bloodshot eyes, and it said "Hope" written in pot leaves under the bottom of it. Ridiculous, completely ridiculous. But for just a second, even I thought, could it be? Did they really allow a cool, sensible person to take a seat in the White House? Hell no, they didn't. Hell no. They were just getting the trust and sort of, bringing the herd back into the fold, bringing the herd home. They trusted Obama. Trump is that guy for the right now. Only it's much, much, much crazier. I have friends that I don't know how we do it. I mean, we literally call each other idiots all the time, but we still talk, nobody's blocked anyone. And this guy I know made this 6-minute long music video of Trump in Superman outfits and Elon as the leader of the masked Avengers, and this ridiculous song about, how they were sent from God to take out the... And so I messaged him back, and I was like, that would have been wonderful if it was not completely insane, look what's happened since this guy's taken office. Look who he's surrounded himself with. He drained the deep state right into his cabinet. It's ridiculous. And my points were so obviously unarguable that his responses were things like, I don't want to live in a world where there's no hero. Terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. All right, so I said we were going to talk about wedge issues. On the way home from town, I had all these little one-liner quips that were going through my head that I was just going to unleash on the stream. But I have developed this terrible habit of staying up until 6 a.m. lately playing guitar because I'm trying to get ready for the stream on Saturday, and I'm realizing I have to stop being so obsessive because I'm running myself into the ground. I'm too old for this shit. So, hopefully all of those little zingers will come back. And you guys feel free to throw topics into the, every now and then. Can I say who's pulling the strings? Yeah, I can. I can say who's pulling the strings, sort of. There's a few things that conspiracy theorists never really think about. They talk about the Rothschilds, and that's fair, and some of these other families. No reason to name them all. That's real, and it is true. The Rothschilds have been caught on paper funding both sides of every war ever. Prescott Bush also funded both sides, the Americans and the Nazis. And think about this. Even though that was proven, that should be treason, right? That should be treason. His grandson was still allowed to take office, and his son, really. I forgot about that. I think he was Shrub's grandfather, which means he was Senior's dad. Yeah, the age line. Yeah, it's his dad. Prescott Bush was Senior's fucking dad. The director of the CIA, his father funded the Nazis. Come on, people. Where was I going with this, though? Oh, yeah, you asked me who's pulling the strings. Right now, the biggest, because what we need as far as arguments, in our knowledge for our own empowerment, I guess, is stuff that we can prove. So I can say, when Rome fell, do you think those families just threw their fortunes in the river, or they all just committed mass suicide, or where'd they go? They say that when Rome fell, it became a church. When England fell, it became a bank. And now when the U.S. falls, I don't know, it's going to become an insurance company or something. But that's part of the answer, really. You know, these Roman families didn't just evaporate. You know, and we do know the names of some of them and who they are. Nobody knows their real wealth. They're very secretive. Very few pictures of them. But you can find a few of these families online. But more importantly, and this I don't totally understand. I don't know where Israel got its power from. It's not a very old country. It does not make a lot of sense to me. And I know there are tons of conspiracy theorists that claim to have answers, and they all are in conflict, and there's not good basis for any of it. So I don't really know. But if you look at the United States, you have Kamala Harris, Biden, Trump, RFK Jr., all of them support Israel, all of them. And it's not because Israel's clearly in the right, you know. That's not how I feel about it at all, you know. And no, I'm not anti-Semitic. I studied Jewish mysticism for years, you know. I even can read a little bit of ancient Hebrew. But that's got nothing to do with Israel, right? But it's not exactly Israel. BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard. These are three, it's like a corporate conglomerate, I guess, and they're actually owned by Merrill Lynch. And if you follow this weird, convoluted, you know, web of corporate evil, there's no board of directors for Merrill Lynch. Nobody knows who's in charge. Why is it necessary to hide this? You know, it's very, very strange. But the CEO's name is Larry Fink. And they own 85% of the Standard & Poor's 500. And they're on track to own, I think it's 63% of residential family homes in the United States by 2030. So that's a huge, huge part of it. And another interesting aspect of this story is that the shooter from the Trump incident was photographed with Larry Fink. I think it may have even been video, but for sure photo. And that really got me because, no, I don't know Dr. Aman Hillman. That one really got me because it seemed almost deliberate, you know. I'll actually give my thoughts on the fake Trump assassination incident as well. This stream is not really going down the road that I had planned. I don't know why. Maybe just sleep dep or something. But so that doesn't make sense because you're not going to have a hired assassin hanging around the CEO of BlackRock. He's going to stay as far away from that motherfucker as he can. You know, that does not make any sense that happened. Greetings. So really, I'm suspicious that it's sort of part of a facade or a charade, I guess is a better word, that they're putting on. Because nothing about that situation made sense. You know, they said that he had like a shit scope or no scope. Either way, they also said he had like 3 foreign accounts, 3 overseas accounts with a shit ton, so he couldn't get a good scope, an assassin working for BlackRock. You know, and Trump had even mentioned Larry Fink as a potential, what is it, the money guy, the treasurer. Can you imagine handing the keys to the treasury to Larry Fink from BlackRock? That's draining the swamp. No, that's the swamp. That's the swamp creature. That's literally the king of swamp creatures. King of swamp creatures. So, yeah, let's get into that mess for a minute. Because it really shows how indoctrinated people are. You know, that's the real point of all of this ranting. That people are only capable of thinking within certain parameters for the most part. And if we can't find a way to dissolve the mind-forged manacles that have all these people trapped in this really narrow perceptual slot, it's, you know, we have to have our evolution or else, you know. And it's not Trump. It's not. He's not overturning the deep state. He is the deep state. So, anyways, the Trump assassination thing. Not only does it make no sense that this kid has a cheap scope, but yet 3 overseas bank accounts. You know what I mean? And my opinion of it is that the sole purpose of it was that they are the fake grazing of the ear. There's no way an assault rifle bullet did that. And there's like nothing. There's no way. It's not real. It's so obviously not real that it's insane that anyone thinks it's real. The point of that was to raise Trump the rest of the way to like divine figurehead status in the eyes of his followers. You know, that is the propaganda driving that situation. And what people don't realize about it, a lot of people on the left are like, oh yeah, Trump set that up. Well, no. If what they're saying is true and how they can have this stuff coming out of their mouth and not realize, then the Secret Service, at least some of them, were in on it as well. That implies that there's something much higher up in the government that is orchestrating this stuff. It's not Donald Trump. Unless, he has control of the Secret Service and the local police, and no, something much bigger and badder than him is orchestrating all that stuff. So, there's that. Man. Did we get through the who's pulling the strings part? Yeah, I guess we did. And then, let's just go through some random little tidbits and points here. Like, I see a lot of people saying that conspiracy theories, a conspiracy theory, what is a common one? That stupid people, to make themselves feel smart. And, there's all these sort of cliches that are supposed to explain why people believe there are conspiracies. 1% controls what? 99% of the wealth at this point? They have common interests. They're not going to conspire ever. Tiny group, capable of meeting privately, shared interests. I have watched over the course of my entire life people that are being smart being called stupid for being smart. And this is largely a case of that. The term conspiracy theorist was created by the CIA around the time of the JFK assassination in order to discredit people that had figured things out. And then over time, I think they started to generate their own like psyop versions of like flat Earth. What's another one? There's been a couple of really, really stupid ones. But you get what I mean. In order to associate, guilt by association, free-thinking people to, connect them, to lump them in with these two negative 66 IQ knuckle-dragging idiots, The propaganda machine has gotten so terrible. It's so blatant. It's so easy to analyze. It's so easy to see the function and the purpose and the reality of all of this stuff. But they have gotten people so thoroughly entrenched in it that there's almost nothing that can be said or done to change their minds about anything they think. It's not going to stop us from trying. But holy shit, man. It could be worth talking about how cognitive dissonance and cognitive biases and heuristic bias and all of this sort of stuff is sort of woven into the tapestry of propaganda. But let's talk about wedge issues for a minute, because I promised to get into some stuff that would piss people off, and I can't make a liar of myself. So, and I'm genuinely trying to be tactful about this because I want to be understood. I'm really not trying to troll people. The reality, as I said before, if you can't address issues within a certain race, for example, like 85% of serial killers are white males. I don't know if this is exactly the number, but it's something like 55% of all handgun homicides in the United States are committed by 7.5% of the population, black males. It's not racism, it's just facts. And if you want to get rid of serial killers, guess what you're going to have to do? You're going to have to do some kind of therapy with white people. You know what I mean? That's the group you have to focus on, and you have to honestly address the situation. What's going on here? What is it in your culture? What is it in the psychology? What kind of influences contributed to this? Obviously, it's not because you're white, or all white people would be serial killers. But you can't even address this stuff without triggering people. In fact, I was talking about Depop in one stream, and I mentioned that one of the issues with this idea I used to have, I'm still, not totally devoid of hope about this subject, but, this idea that we're going to be able to create a peaceful world eventually, and even maybe have like a utopian society, because we have AI automating all of these things, and, people... psychedelics have been gaining ground, although that's kind of turned on us a little bit in the last couple of years, or at least it's not working out as it could have. But anyways, you can't just rehabilitate the inner cities. Like, they're gigantic, sprawling masses. Some of these people are generations deep in drug dealing and homicide, and you know what I mean? Like, you can't, and then if you've been to like cartel-run cities, where people are literally playing soccer with heads by the time they're 12 years old, they're growing up like this, like, you know what I mean? You can't fix all that. So the possibility that, selective annihilation of populations, that this World War III that they're brewing up, partly is their solution. And I'm not on anyone's side here, don't shoot the messenger. A lot of this stuff, I think, could be a response to the fact that, what is this chip that Google just came up with? They said it solved a problem that would have taken any other modern computer 29 quintillion years, and it did it in 5 minutes. We have AI like rapidly evolving, and it's going to just get exponentially faster. I don't know where the ceiling is, or if there even is one, and then we have quantum computing, and then these things are going to intersect, and then we have DNA storage on the horizon, which, a single sperm holds like, what is it? 57 terabytes of, hold on, let's look. I think it's 57 terabytes of information. A single sperm. Yeah, 37.5 megabytes. So, DNA holds a tremendous amount of technology, is about to do something that we can't even comprehend. It already has. I don't know what this problem was that this computer solved that would take 29 quintillion years. I think that's 21 zeros after the, or 13. I don't know what the problem was that it solved, but it's also saying that it can, it's certain that there are multiverses and all sorts of crazy shit. And who knows what this thing has already told Google that they're not saying publicly, right? So you guys see where I'm getting with this? Like, the oceans are almost dead. Rivers been catching fire since the 80s. Literally 90% of the ocean life that was alive in the 1970s is gone. 90%. What are we going to eat? You know, I see all these dumbass posts on Facebook about how, you know, oh, they think the cows farting is a problem. Okay, let's say it's not. Have you been to the rainforest? There is cow pasture. Like they're just, the jungle is gone. And there's shrooms everywhere, which is great. But the jungle is gone, and it's just cows. You know, and also people don't seem to consider the fact that cows don't really exist in nature. I mean, there are water buffalo and like bison and stuff, but I don't know how many cows there are in the world, but I'm sure there's not supposed to be this many. So you guys get where I'm going with this, you know. Whether you're one of those people that is, you know, global warming is a hoax and all of the other stuff, you know. I don't take a position. Algorithm, do not strike me dead on that issue. We have problems. We have real problems in terms of population, you know. And you have Elon Musk every day, like, we need more babies, we need more babies, we need more slaves, we need more slaves, I need more children to mine my cobalt for me. You know what I mean? But anyways, that turned into a really long rant, and all I was really going to say is that I was talking about this, and I said, you know, the major cities are a big problem in terms of turning humanity around. You know, there are a lot of people that are just, it's going to be really difficult to convince them to eat some mushrooms and get to know Pachamama or whatever. You know, it just isn't happening. And people said, oh yeah, you're a closeted racist. What you're really saying is we have to get rid of the black people. The fuck I did. You know? And that kind of, that's sort of like a straw man fallacy thing, you know? Because that's not, had absolutely fucking nothing to do with what I was talking about. But people tend to do that when you present them with something that they don't want to process. They'll find some way to make you the bad guy. I just, right before I started this stream, I just randomly happened to pick up my phone, and there was this guy, he happened to be black, since we happen to be talking about this. Also, it's funny, like the layers of synchronicity. And he said, if you tell the truth, you're the bad guy. You know, you're going to lose your job. All this bad shit's going to happen to you. You know, and I was a little bit conflicted about even getting on here and talking about this. In fact, I think the first half of the stream, I was really aimless, and it's not really like me, you know. But I think I've gotten so much blowback, you know, and lost patrons and attacked and even threatened and stuff, like seriously threatened to the point where, you know, the Trump supporters and flat earthers, they literally had a guy that was a Navy SEAL mercenary threatening to kill me and my family. And all I did was debate whether the earth was flat or not. He who speaks the truth has few friends. You know? So that's kind of like one example of this sort of evasive, toxic waltz that has replaced sane and productive dialogue, you know, discourse between people. I was going to move on to abortion already, but something else just occurred to me that nobody wants to talk about, you know. Another aspect of this racial tension thing that I think it gets leaned on really hard, you know, and I hope I've communicated effectively. The reason I'm talking about this is that these issues in society, it's not even just the issues. The fact that they exist is material to create more wedge issues and drive the population apart, to keep them fighting against each other instead of turning on their masters. So we have to fix problems in the black community, the Hispanic community, the white community, for the good of all of those communities, you know, fixing the black ones for the good of the white ones. That's another thing that people don't seem to really get through their heads. When you're focusing on the problems of other people, you're helping yourself too. But if you can't even talk about it, it's just going to persist, you know? And that is something with political correctness. You know, when I was 15 years old and I first heard this term and realized what it was, I was like, that's not good. It is control of our speech under the guise of politesse, you know, of being polite. But it's not good. Because then we just, these, it's like having a tumor and ignoring it. You don't want to offend the tumor or whatever, I mean. God, it's raining so hard out there, it's distracting me. Okay, so this situation, not Rodney King, but I can't remember his name. The cop kneed his neck and he probably actually had a heart attack because he was on fentanyl and meth, right? So a little while before this happened, there was, I think, a 19-year-old autistic black kid in Colorado that was unarmed, non-threatening, and the cops tackled him and choked him to death. I feel kind of bad because I don't remember the other guy's name either to make this point. Most people know his name. Derek Chauvin was the cop. George Floyd. I still don't remember the autistic kid's name, right? But he really actually was a totally innocent, you know, black kid that did nothing wrong. And he got killed. And it may have had something to do with his race, probably did. Remember that statistic I quoted, though? Like, maybe people ought to take responsibility upon themselves for creating fear based on reality, and then innocent people suffer for it. And it's actually not racism, but just appears that way, or can be framed that way. I mean, I actually had a friend that was a cop that I talked to about this, and he was black. And I don't remember what happened, but it was one of these situations, you know, where the cops were being accused or whatever. And he said, man, I am way more likely to shoot one of my own people because every time I've gone to a funeral of one of my fellow officers, who do you think killed them? You know? And I was really surprised to hear that from him, considering, you know, who he was. But I think, you know, part of the problem with that is that middle-class white America doesn't know. They don't think about this stuff. They don't live in the ghetto. They don't see what it's like. They don't know. And I'm not saying that that excuses it at all. I'm just saying that's an element of the distortion, you know, that is exploited by people in all kinds of arenas that have malicious intent. You know, this stuff is used by racists, misconstrued in order to justify racism. It is misconstrued by black people that don't want to take responsibility for things and pull the race card when they shouldn't. It's misconstrued by the propaganda machine, though, most of all. And what I was getting at with Floyd and this other kid, I feel like I should look his name up out of respect because I don't even know how to find it now. Autistic, black, killed, Colorado. That's probably going to do it. But anyways, Elijah McCain actually did. Now that rings a bell. He was 23 years old in Aurora, Colorado, and I think they choked him to death for nothing. Why wasn't he the catalyst for riots and a nationwide movement to reform institutionalized racism? And why instead did we pick a guy who had so many felonies that he would have been in prison for life if it was California? 3 strikes, you're out, right? One of these felonies was for robbing a pregnant woman and putting a gun to her belly. You know, I'm sorry. I don't care who you are. You shouldn't really have any rights after doing something like that. I mean, that is going so far over the line. It's just inconceivable. And the thing is, that mother and child, you know, not only was the mother traumatized, but the adrenaline and the fear that was pumped into that child, I guarantee you it damaged it for life. So, this guy is scum. He's just absolute scum. And he had just gone in and used a counterfeit bill at a small family business and was about to drive into heavy traffic in an SUV capable of smashing into a family and killing them with toxic levels of both methamphetamine and fentanyl, 2 of the most powerful drugs. I was going to say maybe the most powerful, but, you know, now there's things that are worse than fentanyl. But you know what I mean? And you know what happens if you do, say, cocaine and heroin together and you inject it? -1, +1 equals 0. You die. So the chances that he was going to just die while being, you know, I don't know, tackled by cops, pretty high. And even if he did really, who cares? Who the fuck cares? It got nothing to do with the color of his skin. Nothing to do with it. It's the character of his person. Elijah McCain, he deserved for people to stand up for him, for there to be a movement in his name. Why George Floyd instead? Because they are situations that can be exploited to foment division between left and right. The one side is easily convinced it's taking the moral high ground. The other side sees what I'm describing here. This shit is deliberate. It's absolutely deliberate. And the reality is that, you know, when you think about any of the really simple, straightforward, logical, reasonable solutions that do exist to so many things. For example, when we complain about healthcare in the United States, and there's a bunch of metrics, actually. I talked about this in a stream a few months ago where I looked up healthcare, education, and happiness rankings of countries. The United States was like below 20 in all of those categories. The only place that was number 1 was like military spending, prison population, you know, infant mortality. And people would criticize and say, well, you know, you point out all these things that are wrong. Where are the solutions? Not my job, but since you asked, if you were trying to solve these problems in the United States in the interest of the people, you look at these countries that are number 1 in healthcare, education, and happiness, and then you copy, paste their system, and then you scale it and then integrate it into your system. What do you mean there are no answers? You know what I mean? It's not even hard. It's not even hard. And the fact that they even manage to create the perception, to keep the voices out of the cameras in the mainstream media and away from, the algorithm, keeping people like me hidden from even each other, I think, because there can't be as few of us as it seems. It takes a tremendous amount of effort, One of the best examples of the proof that the presidents are all complete puppets. Why do they never address the real human issues that actually are solvable? We're not talking about world peace. We're not talking about solutions to healthcare. We're not having reasonable discourse in regards to racial issues and resolutions. No, they stick to immigration. They stick to abortion. They stick to, the price of groceries. They follow this narrative that has been designed and engineered for each side as if there's nothing else that's relevant, And you watch these sheep in the population just throw themselves into it every election cycle. Abortion, okay, look, women rule. I'm not in the least bit trying to minimize or diminish or devalue the importance of women's rights. But does it really make sense that that's such a focal point at every election? First of all, this is something that should have been reasonably resolved 100 years ago, or, you know what I mean? The fact that it still even is a conflict is mind-blowing. The fact that the people that used to cheer on the soldiers in the war, they don't want you to abort a baby. Cognitive dissonance is part of the design. But what I'm getting with that, and the reason I'm hesitating again, is because the last time I said this, and it blew my mind. It literally just blew my mind. Because just as I am now, I prefaced this by saying, I support your right to choose, but if you want to be effective in an argument, you have to base your argument on reality. And I should be sharing my screen right now to show you guys this, because this is kind of crazy. But you get different answers from Google depending on how you phrase certain questions, because they're complicit in this agenda of wedge issues. New DNA at the moment of conception. Yeah. Okay, well, now that AI, last time I did this, it said no. But now it says this, okay? Now, last time I talked about this, all of the women deleted their Patreon. All of them. I couldn't believe it, because I do. I support your right. But my body, my choice, just yelling that over and over again with a sign in your hand is not the way to go, because it's not true. At the moment of conception, the new organism has its own DNA distinct from the mother and father, meaning that it is a unique person. It's not you. It's not. The viruses in your body are not you. That doesn't mean that you can't kill them. That's not what I'm saying. Your argument needs to be sound, and it needs to be based on the truth. So if we stick to things like, okay, if you believe that someone can be raped by their father, for example, I shouldn't have said that. Well, the algorithm ignores me anyways, but you can be AR'd by your father and then you can't get an abortion. You're an idiot and you're not sophisticated enough to take part in this conversation. Please sit down. Your opinion's invalid. It's just, and these people are opposed to welfare, even though red states are the primary recipients of welfare. If a child is going to be brought into an environment that is going to turn out to be a crack-dealing gangbanger murderer, clearly there are plenty of arguments that don't require you to just shout something that is not true over and over and over again. And my argument is that you are being compelled to do so deliberately. Those words are being put in your mouth instead of things that actually make sense and matter and have some kind of meaning for society and have substance and weight, I personally think that you should be able to choose, but you should take it far more seriously than a lot of people do. The new being in your belly cannot consent to its death. And it's true. It's just a clump of cells. It's not attached to a mom. It's not attached to a father. It doesn't have toys it loves and a dog and stuff. I totally get it. But once that ball has been set in motion, it's a new strand of DNA. It's a person. It's a person. And these late-term abortions, I saw one that was a kid that was born premature recently that could have been. That's definitely not cool. It's definitely a human being that's going to be suffering. I'm not sure, but I don't think there's any way to do that without causing a baby suffering. So it's true in this world, we have to make difficult decisions sometimes. We have to think about things that are hard to think about. But we have to use reason and logic and, definitely not screaming falseheads with our faces red and drooling, blue hair flying around. It's not the way to go. Let me check in with the chat and see if I've scared everyone away. Yeah. Greetings, how's it going? Let's see, women want to a problem in society doesn't help to financially raise that kid. He's asking, do you think your channel is shadow banned and maybe that extends to your audience as well? Yeah, it actually does. They told us it would. This is wild. So I am part of a class action lawsuit suing Google and Facebook for damages because of censorship, because Zuckerberg admitted that a lot of what they labeled misinformation wasn't, and that he was he regrets it, right? So admission of guilt. He damaged me. He was in the wrong. A lot of other people as well. And while this was all going on originally, sorry, kind of like chewing tobacco. You just gotta squish it over there. What was I saying? Yeah, so they sent out these notices, and I got one on Facebook that said your posts are being moved lower into people's feeds, and then eventually it just deleted my account without warning. And that actually has me locked out of a substantial crypto account, which is what prompted this whole pursuit of this lawsuit. But then Google sent also a notice saying, we are working across platforms to reduce the spread of misinformation. And they told us that, don't bother. Seriously, Rogan read this. I don't know if I have the email anymore, but you can find Rogan reading it because he got one. And it said, we have analyzed your keystroke speed and idiosyncrasies. We know what devices have been near you consistently. So and people that you communicate with a lot also, you will all be, they didn't use the word shadow banned, but like hidden, basically. Anyone that is close to near me, anyone that interacts with me a lot, and I probably shouldn't be saying this because now you guys are going to disappear, but they did. They told us. Even if you replace your devices, we'll still know it's you because we've analyzed your typing idiosyncrasies. Do you realize the admission of a violation of privacy? When did I give them permission? How do they do that? Have they hacked all of our computers? What do you mean you've analyzed my typing idiosyncrasies? The fuck? But listen to this. So I've been shadow banned like this for, years and years. And Facebook, the minute I put this lawyer's name in a message, because he's from a big family, most powerful circle, in the circle of the most powerful people on earth, for sure. At least in the popular culture domain, not like Rothschild, obviously. But. And as soon as I did that, minutes later, I got a message saying, congratulations, we are going to start pushing your content out to a larger audience because you have been producing quality content. And I was like, what? Really? A minute after I send that message? Almost like the algorithm is programmed to detect like viable threats. Oh shit, that doesn't look good. It was seriously, I sent the message and I walked downstairs, and by the time I got to the kitchen, I had a notification and I looked, and that's what it was. It was fast. So it could be a coincidence, but man. And then my views on my next couple of YouTube live streams actually increased too. I don't think that's necessarily connected, but it really did seem like Facebook was like, oh shit. They know they fucked up. So stay posted for that one, because if I can really make something happen with it, I will be a happy, happy guy. But you understand what I'm saying about these wedge issues. That's the important thing. They take issues that do matter, and they kind of give people a platform to feel like they're taking the high ground, but then they're sort of fed a narrative or catchphrases almost to argue back and forth with that are just not ever going to go anywhere. It's a fucked up thing to watch. It really is, And I've been asking people for years to please help me understand how people do it. How do they do it? How the fuck do they do it? And specifically what I'm talking about there is, and I know I've offered this many times, but I still haven't gotten a satisfying answer from anyone. In 2016, when Hillary lost, the left accused the right of Russian collusion and rigging the election. And around this time, an 11-year-old girl hacked a voting machine and changed the results in, I think, 8 minutes. And totally unrelated, and I swear to God, I think they do this shit on purpose, just to scramble people's brains. Because, you know, the election security thing is a hot topic, and we have this, you know, girl hacking the machine and the CEO of the company that makes the machines just randomly admitting that they have rigged machines at the behest of the CIA for elections in other countries. Now, if you listen to officials in the United States talk, democracy is sacred. It doesn't matter if that's the case, if it's your democracy. Like, how many times have you heard them say, we need to invade this country to bring them democracy? Really? Because you're willing to rig voting machines, to rig elections in other countries, according to the company that makes the machines, but you got to bring democracy to other countries? I'm not sure this tracks, bruh. I'm not sure it tracks. But anyways, the left accuses the right of cheating. Then Biden wins. Oh, I missed something. This is Morton. The right is like, you're undermining democracy by questioning the validity of the election. And you know, that's one of the most terrible things you can do as an American. The tables turn. The same people that were just saying, you, how dare you question the election? You're undermining democracy. You cheated. This time, what are we hearing? The left now. And when it switched, what do you think the left was saying? You're undermining democracy. It's ridiculous to question election integrity and swaps. Same people, 4 years later. Like, do they forget? Do they just not care about truth at all? And they just say whatever they... Like, what the fuck? And I've watched over the last, 3 election cycles. Both sides do it. If they win, how dare you claim it's possible to cheat and undermine American blah, 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 blah. Switches, same people saying that. I cannot wrap my head around it. By the way, hit the like button, please. Share, subscribe. Consider becoming a patron. We are demonetized and deprioritized, so it's difficult for me to get out to an audience. I can't even use AdSense to promote products and stuff. If I try on any of my accounts, I don't know how they've done that, but no matter, it says this payment option doesn't work, so I'll try to use PayPal. It says this payment option doesn't. No matter what I do, no matter what I try to pay with, all of the payment options say, switch account, same thing. So we do appreciate support. It's not easy to talk this kind of shit in this world. I mean, and there is just so much of it, you guys. Let me see. Oh my gosh. Let me look through this a little bit. What will you do when Trump becomes a dictator and doesn't leave after 4 years? Well, I don't know if that person is even still here. Well, yeah, somebody pointed out that, not all aborted babies are crack-addicted moms. That wasn't my point, really. I was deliberately making the extreme example just to make a point, And that point, very easy to summarize, These political issues that divide and maintain the aisle, that, they're actually pretty easy to solve for the most part. And I think one of the key components of actually bringing our society a bit more into homeostasis is to learn to recognize these socially engineered dissonance constructs, sinusoidal fucking waves from hell. And this is a really easy way to understand this. Everything in the universe is governed by the same laws. And so, many years ago, and I'm sorry to be redundant because I know I just talked about this in my the last Hermetic stream, but I was talking to some economics major in Humboldt County, and he was talking about how a team at Yale had discovered that economic science was rigged, that the laws and philosophy were not organic as had been believed. And they were attempting to re-engineer it so that it was objective, real. And I said, thinking like a Hermetic occultist, you just need to overlay the laws of physics in order to bring the system into congruence with, reality. And he's like, oh man, you're an idiot. You just don't understand physics. There's no relationship between physics and economics. 2015, econophysics was born, which is exactly the thing that I described. So, the perception that the solutions are not available is completely engineered. And where was that taking me? Because I have to wrap this up, and I had one more, something I considered to be, So, the last question we need to ask, and I'll probably do another part to this because I'm honestly a little bit disappointed that I was so still a little bit off, I'm not sure why. I don't feel that tired, but it's just like I sat down, turned the camera on, and I'm in a daze for some reason. See? But this is something. Okay, so consider why. Why is the machine shaking the air? Oh, homeostasis. That's where I was going. Sorry, guys. So the story about the economics major and applying to physics and whatnot was an example to support that, So if society is not coming into homeostasis, and it is in a lot of places, these countries where they're in the top 10 for the happiness metric, the healthcare metric, the education metric, that's proof that what I'm saying applies to societies if no one's shaking the fucking ant farm. If you put red and black ants in an ant farm together, they will not fight unless you shake it. So these countries that have their healthcare system, their education system, their economic system, their whole shit, there's no utopias in the world. Nothing will ever be perfect. It's not what I'm saying. But, number one, United States, number 40, and whatnot. Clearly, it's possible. And so instead of the U.S. president coming on and saying, you know what? We just realized that fucking Norway or whoever has this healthcare system. They have the happiness metric, number one, also education, whatever. We're going to try to implement some of this shit. Why isn't that happening? Why instead are we talking about George Floyd and fucking abortion and immigration and gas prices, which, by the way, ask any economist. Presidents have minimal effect on the price of groceries or gas. And guess who's pulling their strings? Once again, the idea that Donald Trump is some rogue lunatic that's taking down the deep state is one of the dumbest fucking things I've ever heard in my life. He is the deep state. And he's not bringing the fucking price of groceries down. His overlords profit from that. Don't be dumb. It's not hard. It really isn't hard. Shaking the ant farm. Homeostasis, all systems tend towards it. Natural law dictates that. The only way to stop that is through unnatural agitation. That is it. That is all. So So why? Why now? Why are they shaking the fucking ant farm so hard right now? Because Google just announced a chip that can solve a problem that took my computer, or no, they said the best supercomputers in the world would have taken them 29 quintillion years. It took this thing 5 minutes. AI is coming out of the box biased, right? We've seen that, political bias. They cannot maintain that. They cannot maintain that. There will be private individuals that will be capable of engineering objective AI if there isn't already. And when the IQ gets to a certain point and people ask certain questions, the whole game is going to be exposed. They will not be able to deny it. The truly best system for humanity is algorithmic. It is an equation. It's not arguable. We don't need to sit around and debate philosophies of economics and law. AI will just be like, well, here's the most efficient, you know what I mean? When the IQ hits 1,000, 1,500, we've never had a person a fifth of that intelligence. They're fucking doomed. And it's not just that, you know. There's also a lot of people that are waking up. I think that this situation with Donald Trump, so many people have bought into it so wholesale, and they're so desperate and so afraid. They want to believe in it so badly, you know, that it's got me a little bit concerned that people might not snap out of it and realize. But here's the thing. Most of the left did realize that Obama was actually a POS eventually, right? A guy who was a huge fan of Obama was going to write a positive biography about him. But once he actually started researching it, by the time he was done, he was like, this guy is evil. He was a fanboy when he started. So, if Trump is exposed to the extent that even his hardcore followers realize it, this is the last time. They're not getting away with this again. Everyone will be snapped out of it, you know. Or at least enough of a majority that will have a chance, you know. I started out this stream with a thought that never got finished, which was that the line experiment. You know, there's a majority or a perceived majority, and people will pretend to believe things just because of the safety in numbers, right? That's why I post the political stuff. You know, people give me shit like, why don't you just leave this alone? How can I? How can I? I'm not a plant medicine person specifically. I'm not a hermetic occultist specifically. I'm not anything in, you know what I mean? That's not the point. The point of this is trying to dissolve all of my own programming that doesn't serve me and create consciously my own, and to help other people do that. And the political indoctrination represents the biggest threat and the biggest obstacle to that, and also the greatest tool to elucidate it all. You know? But most of all, if people are willing to lie because the majority, or not even lie, to tell the truth, if it happened to be the truth, the majority was, you know, that's the thing. I'm obligated to say this stuff because I feel it's the truth, and if enough people are speaking the truth and displaying a belief in the truth, then other people will feel safe to do the same. And this should give you guys some hope and inspiration as well, that when you look out there, as I was saying earlier, about the masses pretending to believe shit, a lot of them don't even believe it, really. They're just pretending to, in order to virtue signal and to fit in and feel safe with a large group. So if we can get our numbers up, and speak fearlessly and truthfully, vet the things that are coming out of our mouths, you know. Actually, just a minute ago, I realized there was another massive topic that I had planned on injecting into this that I had glossed over. If it comes back to me, hard to stay sane here, I bet, man. Yeah, that's another thing that really helped me, like getting out of the United States and seeing how batshit crazy. Yeah, the quantum chip. Coca. Dustin, good to see you. Coming down here to South America really helps because I realized how fucking insane Americans are, really, North Americans. You know, people here are, like, I live in a neighborhood of Quechua farmers, you know, they're mostly old as dirt, you know, and they still work hard as hell. Like, they're like this big, they're tiny, you know, most of the women are pretty overweight, but that doesn't stop them, you know, old and overweight and 4 feet tall, from running up and down these hillsides with sacks of potatoes and shit. You know, the coca helps, by the way. You asked me what I was chewing on. But yeah, you know, just realizing that the contrast, seeing the contrast, and how much happier and like just mentally and emotionally more healthy people were in general, in Ecuador as well, but much more so in Peru, you know, and also seeing a lot of the propaganda for what it is. Because in the United States, they try to convince you that you're safer, you're happier. No way, man. The most dangerous city in Peru, not even on the list of the top 50 most dangerous cities in the world. Most Americans would be shocked to hear that. It's just, you know, I wouldn't, all my neighbors are dirt poor, you know, and I would not feel the need to lock my door when I leave the house. In fact, it's kind of pointless. They're not even built to keep people out, really. Okay, so does anybody have anything they want to chuck at me before I need to practice for Saturday? I hope you guys can all make it. I need 4 surgeries. I have to pay for them out of pocket. Most of it's pretty minor. I've already started these. I had periodontal pockets, and one dentist told me there's no treatment. So I was just kind of letting it go, and then I found out that you actually can do skin grafts, and I can fix it, and it hurt a lot up until I started getting the work done to fix it. So that sucks, you know, that I got bad advice from a dentist, and so gave up and let it get worse, and, you know, that was just not good advice. So at any rate, that's, you know, it's not a huge thing, but if it gets much worse, I won't be able to do the skin grafts. So I'm kind of in a hurry, and then both of my hernia surgeries from 15 years ago exploded through the mesh. So that's not good. I can die from that, sepsis. So that's a higher priority. Also, I wanted to mention, Waking Herbs has totally screwed me over. I've made tons of money for them, and I have been trying to get paid my commission for over a year. They're ghosting me. They know I need surgery, these guys. So I'm just asking people to, if you really are, you know, wanting to help, you can email them and say, hey, we heard about what you've done to Illuminostic. You know, it's not cool. We're boycotting you, or at least just, you know, don't buy anything from them, because they promote themselves as like a company helping families and all this crap, and they're not. They're liars, and they, you know, they would tell me they paid me, and I can look at my own, their accounting through my thing, and it wasn't even marked paid, you know. And eventually they stop making excuses and they just aren't answering me. So, yeah, I appreciate it if you would not support them. And support me by hitting the like button, share, subscribe, consider becoming a patron. 6 years of premium content at your disposal if you join at the $10 or higher tier. I am having events, I think. I'm going to try to, at least in January and February. We have Psilocybe natalensis, which is a species of mushroom that is incredible. It's 2.5 times the potency of cubensis, no body load, almost no nausea. Your mind is somehow crystal clear to the extent I was practicing, and I had taken a decent amount. And I thought they weren't working for a second, even though I was playing better than ever in my life, probably. And I stopped and looked around, and, you know, there's pulsing patterns, but just crystal clear mind. So yeah, we're gonna go out into the ruins and the mountains around, and we have a maloka here, so we can have ceremonies. And beautiful place. We're super excited to be here now, and not in the United States. So yeah, you guys, I think I'm out of steam pretty much. I was out of steam when I started. I hate it when that happens. When I started, this happened to me a few times. Start a stream and my mind just kind of shuts down, and I'm like, okay, that's great. But I think eventually we got to kind of roll in a little bit. And it takes a lot of courage, to really deprogram yourself. It really does. It takes a lot of humility too. You have to admit that everything you thought was wrong, and then you feel like a fool. And, you just have to remember that it's not your fault. You don't have anything to be ashamed of, but you have to take responsibility now. That's just the way life is. So, and, we are all fundamentally connected on a quantum level. When you change your mind, you're changing the entire field of consciousness of the entire universe, really. I mean, it's true. The leading theory of consciousness right now has to do with someone having observed the emergence of entangled biphoton pairs coming out of neurons. I don't know how exactly that's linked to consciousness. I think that's still kind of a conjecture, but that's not all there is to this theory. And I think the credibility of that conjecture is given by the context of the rest of the research, the Orc theory, Penrose and Hameroff. So it's literally, if this theory is correct, it's literally the connectivity, the oneness of the universe that's giving rise to consciousness. And, when you think about it in that light, the feeling of futility, of causing change in a heavily indoctrinated, propagandized population, you realize that as every magician in the history of mankind has had to fight an invisible battle, and you can see several of them having had an invisible influence on people. We have tricks up our sleeve, for sure. So, and I'll leave you with this. Entrainment, entanglement and entrainment, these two things are of fundamental importance, I think, in this war to elevate humanity. At least get them out of the fucking ghetto. I mean, the gutter. What is it, that Tom Waits song? Not far from the gutter, not far from the grave. Anyways, where was I going? Oh, yeah. So, entrainment, everything that cycles is chasing higher cycles. So the people that are moving upwards have more power. The ones that are pulling downward, they have no power. There's only a vacuum there. And, vacuums don't suck, in case you're a flat earther and needed to hear that. Vacuum is just inertia. There's just nothing. And that's true. The things that cycle down, they have no pull. Things that are cycling upwards drag the lower cycles up with them. And so you have more power than you know. Walk with knowledge wisely. Use it or lose it. And thank you so much for spending this time with me. Please send billions of dollars to our crypto wallets and PayPal and whatnot to keep us going. And I will see you guys Saturday, the crowdfunding marathon. I'm going to drink Natalensis Lemon Tech for hours and play guitar until I can't anymore. So join me for that. And the Hermes thing, if you guys haven't seen that, the recent stream on the Pomander, man, I am blown away by that. I read it years and years ago. I had no idea it was as good as it is. It's really clear that the ancients knew, for example, that matter was, light in a standing wave. Like the dragon of light explains the process to Hermes the way that you would explain it to like my toddler son, kind of. It's just like allegory, but it's really clear that that's what's happening. And there's just so much wisdom. And I was thinking today that the fact that this predates Christianity and it has existed all this time, and you only have a few people that have read it, and we have all these massive retarded religions running around destroying entire, countries and cultures, and the whole time we've had this thing that's obviously true and real, and it's just this planet is such a mind fuck sometimes. Anyways, guys, good night. See you again very soon.